This is Natalia, and this is Faridah. This series has been so eye-opening for me in so many ways, but out of the many things I discovered while shooting this, the journey of biracial folks is something that really stood out that honestly I hadn't thought about much before, but it kept coming up. And I also couldn't help wondering, how is the experience now for young folks in school or recently graduated? I'm aware there are many conversations I'm just not equipped to have, but stories that need to be heard and shared. So I asked some friends to come together for a conversation. Natalia, who is currently in high school, and Faridah, who recently graduated from college. They met, and the insight, overlap in story and experience, and just wisdom and thoughtfulness is so incredible. I stepped all the way out, and we let the camera capture the conversation. It's so insightful and beautiful. Check it.
For me, like, especially in coming back here and then like also still kind of like searching for community. And like, you know, when Rashawn mentioned you, I was like, oh man, like I really wanted to know more just specifically about your experience at Santa Fe High and like.
Yeah, definitely. My elementary school, I went to Fayette, and it was super, super small, and definitely like the whitest crowd of Santa Fe. And I think it didn't really start to become noticeable to me until I was in middle school, because my middle school class was me and like less than 10 other girls, and they were all white. And even in like that very progressive setting of like an all-girls school, and trying to teach us about things like racism, I very much felt isolated in that sense of just being that one in the room every single time. And I think that at Santa Fe High it's definitely better, and it's definitely the amount of people that are there, and the fact that it's like pretty Hispanic is it's definitely different. And there's definitely elements of it that are still like, oh, the one black kid in the class, but I'm not the one brown kid in the class, at least. So it's definitely different.
Was there like a specific moment that you can remember like having that, like, oh, okay, this is me and the rest of my class, like we have a different identity? Or did you have like a...
I became more cognizant of it kind of around like 7th and 8th grade, as I started like, that's definitely when they start teaching you like U.S. history, and definitely just thinking about like how my history was different and how my point of view is different. And when I was in 8th grade, I started becoming more interested in like researching racism. We all get, at my middle school, everyone gets to do like a really in-depth research project, and I chose to do mine about racism because it was something that I really cared about, and definitely just learning about that, and like trying to present that to my classmates in an all-white setting was something very new to me, and something I've definitely gotten more used to.
Do you have a lot of like encouragement around all of this too? Like, I actually don't know like what your story, what your background is.
Yeah, my mom is Korean, and so we definitely share a lot of the same feelings around just like being marginalized and being in a lot of white spaces in Santa Fe, and just like in her workplace and at my school. But then we also have that difference because I'm half black and she isn't. So we're definitely we openly are always trying to talk about that and like be aware of that for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow. Yeah, this is definitely like making me really reflect on, again, just like, those, because I also don't think I had like one moment, but I know, well, maybe that's not true. Like elementary school, it was just my brother and I and our entire school. And then when we moved to Santa Fe, so we moved from Velarde, so just north of here. But when we moved to Santa Fe, that was like middle school. I was at Capshaw. I don't know if you know about Capshaw. And then went to a smaller school, and it was similar. I had like finally had one like other black friend, and we both like, I don't know, I think when we met each other, that was when like the whole world opened up. Which was huge. And we're still really good friends. We moved back home together too.
Yeah, I definitely, I think my freshman year, I met like the one other black girl in my freshman class. She and I became friends, and then at some point she was like, I didn't realize you were black. And we had that moment where we were both like, hey.
Yeah.
And it was very exciting.
Yeah. And did she, but she knew you were black, or you knew she was black?
I knew she was black.
Okay.
But she didn't know I was black.
Okay.
But yeah, that was really cool to just feel that connection with someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very rare at Santa Fe High, for sure, to meet other black kids. Because it's not just like, just because we're black, we're going to be friends.
I hear that. I feel like that's the thing that I'm like really, especially like working through right now, and like was really naive for me. Like I was naive about in college. I was like, okay, I'm moving to, you know, a new state. I'm going to meet more black people. We're all going to be friends. You know, I was just ready to be like received by a black community.
Totally.
But it was similar in Colorado. It was like there were so few of us that like, of course, you're not going to connect deeply and intimately with everyone.
Right.
And I feel like I still can't accept that. Like I'm still like, but wait, I want to connect with you.
Totally.
Yeah. Do you feel like you like, I don't know, do you feel like you seek that out?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something I've become more aware of. And like when I feel like I'm more open to like, if I see another black person, to like kind of like reach out in that way, because I know how important that can be and how important it definitely was to me.
Yeah.
And I think I'm definitely more open to just like forming new communities once I graduate and once I'm in like a more diverse space, for sure.
Yeah. In terms of like identifying, how do you identify? If you do. I didn't then, and I still am trying to figure it out.
I've always like seen myself as being black and being Asian, and as just being a person of color.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely tough because like you'll have to fill out a form, or like people will ask you and you'll be like, oh, what do I say?
Right.
And I always try to be open about the fact that I can identify as two races, because I know people will be like very genuinely like confused. Yeah, so I think part of my identity has just been learning how to express that to others, because I think I've always kind of known for myself.
Right.
Yeah.
I really like, it's pretty incredible to just hear you say that, because I definitely like, again, reflecting on my own experience, felt like it was really much easier for me to like have other people identify for me, or like, you know, I don't know, I felt like I was never like, I definitely had the conundrum of like being mixed and then not being this enough or not being that enough, but it was often like the white students in my classes that were like, oh, you're not really black, or you're not really, you know, and so it's really like empowering and incredible to just hear you like, you know that, and it's pretty incredible. Yeah, I mean, I would be curious too, like, is that part of something that you face like in your classes or like in community here, that like, yeah, like you're saying, people want to like compartmentalize you and are like, wait, what are you? Who are you? Do you feel like that's like a big part of your experience in like having to be in this community?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely like the first thing when I meet people is they're like, what nationality are you? Or what race are you? And I've definitely gotten more used to it and less like flustered by it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I've definitely felt an internalized sense of like, oh, you're not black enough if this, or you're not Asian enough if this. And just like trying to be in acceptance with the fact that I'm just a person, and I don't have to fit into certain categories to be that, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's really interesting to think too, just again, I mean, we're not like, we're very close in age, and to just think of the timeline too of like, because of course I know that we both probably think about this a lot, but like the influence then of media, and like I think that was a big part of like why I think that I felt like I was like not black enough, was because you know, whatever people were soaking up about black culture and black people was one really particular beautiful version, but like not necessarily a version that I fit into. And so I'm not even like, honestly, like I haven't kept up so much with like, I don't know, who are the musicians people are listening to now, or like, you know, but I think that I know that was a big influence, and that was why I struggled with that, was like, what people understood about Blackness was like pretty far removed from, the actuality, and like, especially growing up here, like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a big influence, right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I definitely grew up like seeing Black people in media depicted a certain way and feeling like I had to fit into that.
Yeah.
And I think also like Black culture in America is so defined by community, and just not having that community growing up and feeling like I wasn't Black enough because I had all white friends, even though like, where were the Black friends? I think I've definitely had to kind of learn to find my own communities and to not put that pressure on myself, or to feel like I have to conform to that to still be Black, you know?
Yeah. Ultimately, like, I feel like what you're naming around like being able to like both hold and like honor identity, and then also like not step outside of it so much, but like really I don't know, just like get to know like our humanness, like you're saying.
Absolutely.
Feels huge. Sometimes me personally, I have a lot of resistance to that, because I'm like, wait, but like, because I grew up mixed, and because I also had a similar experience of like confusing people, and I grew up with my white mom here, not knowing my dad, so I felt like especially like kind of isolated in that. But because of that, I like really wanted to just like call it something. Like I really wanted to like not have anybody question me, and I really wanted to like be seen, especially like non-verbally, you know. Like I think that in interactions with people it definitely comes up, this like, what are you, or you're not this enough, you're not that enough,
beyond having to like fit into certain like racial categories. I've definitely felt the need to like prove like how Black I was, or how Asian I was, or like having to pick one and like express that like visually to other people. Because I've definitely always felt like I grew up with a lot of Korean culture because of my mom, and having to prove that to people when they're like, are you really Korean? Like, do you speak Korean? And I don't. So just having to like feel valid in my identity as well, without having to like prove that to other people.
Can you like say more about that, like visually wanting to prove yourself, or in your expression, what does that look like?
I definitely, when I was a kid, wanted lighter skin, and I wanted to be like, if I'm Asian, then I should look like the Asian girls that I saw represented, which were very few and very pale and very like straight hair. I definitely went through a big hair straightening phase where I just wanted people to see me as like a certain race, rather than so ambiguous and always having to answer questions about it. But I feel like I've definitely moved away from that so much, and just trying to be like, I'm just a person, and this is how I look, and it doesn't matter how other people might perceive that, because I'm able to maybe explain that to them, or to just feel confident enough that I don't have to. But yeah, it's definitely been in my life. I've wished that I could be someone who, when people saw them, they were like, oh, that's a Black girl. Like, you know.
No question. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I hear that. I'm really curious about like your classroom setting and the classes you're taking, because when I was in school, I don't think I was introduced to like any Black studies until like my junior or senior year, and it was just 2 classes. It was like English Lit, and like a finance class, even like we were talking about the Harlem Renaissance. It's the first time that I like really like was learning about other Black writers, about Black filmmakers. Like, how is it at Santa Fe High?
I've definitely like, it's been mixed for me. I've definitely put a lot of effort into trying to change a lot of the things that I had seen that were unfair. Like, I've spoken to my English teachers about including more Black writers, and I've seen them do it, and that's been great. And then there have definitely been classes that I've been in that have been a lot more aware of the Black experience. I took AP US History last year, and it's definitely I don't know about the regular U.S. history class, but it's definitely a bigger part of that curriculum than I had learned before. And so that was good. My government class as well, I think the teacher has become more aware of certain issues while teaching that class. Yesterday we were talking about 9/11 and all of these 9/11 documentaries, and he was saying that he had realized that a lot of the majority of the documentaries, the hero was played by a white guy. And reading about this black Marine who was portrayed in a movie by a white guy. And the teacher being like, I realized this, and I want you guys to know about it. And I think that was great, because as a black person, I've always noticed those kinds of things, but I think a lot of people haven't. So I've definitely seen a lot of change, even just recently, in how my classes are. And I think definitely being the one black kid in the class, I feel a certain responsibility to, speak up when I see things that I feel aren't representative. But I've definitely seen it get better over time, for sure.
That's amazing. And how is it with like your classmates then? Do you also feel like, I mean, of course, like, it's so badass of you, first of all, to be like talking to your teachers in this way and letting them know, like, hey, here are some more resources, or hey, this isn't accurate, or this isn't representing me and an entire culture I'm a part of. Do you feel like you have to do that same work with the people that are in your class, educating them in that way too, along with your teachers?
I feel like people in my class generally are like pretty open-minded, and it's just that a lot of that ignorance just stems from them not being exposed to certain things. So I think, like, when I'm in a class and there's no other black people, and there have been no black writers, for example, it's not something that they notice, but once it's pointed out to them, I think it's something that they do put an effort into being more aware of, for sure. And it has been like definitely a struggle to be characterized as like the angry black girl who's like mad about not getting a book about her in the class.
Oh my gosh, talk about it.
But I've learned honestly that it's like I gotta stand my ground, and I gotta be like, this is worth it to me. If people like me get to be represented in this class, I'll be mad about it.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, of course, like, you're doing it for so many, others who are like following you.
I hope so.
You totally are. That's amazing. It really is. I mean, we're surrounded by pretty incredible artists. And, a community that sees the world in that way. And then again, I just have felt so frustrated with, like, of course the lens is colonial, of course the lens is white, of course, like, I mean, there's so many galleries in this town. There's so many, like, I don't know, I don't like see a lot of like our art, or I still in such a small community still don't feel like I'm represented in what's supposed to be like a multicultural city and a place that really values diversity and city different, and like, I don't know, sometimes it feels like a lot of talk.
I've always felt like art in Santa Fe has been, from such a white perspective, I see art and I see social issues through the lens of racial issues a lot of the time, and a lot of people just would never think about that. And I think that's why diversity is so important. In my art class last year, we had this prompt to look at things through the lens of the earth, and like how we value the earth, and like things about like global warming and climate change, and like all of those things, those aspects of nature. And my brain immediately went to like the ways in which this climate crisis disproportionately affects black people. And I think that in a class of white art students, no one's brain went there except for mine, And it's like, it's not because of anything intentional, it's just that perspective that a lot of people don't have. So I've definitely felt that art in Santa Fe is so much just needing perspective more than anything.
I just graduated from college like just 2 years ago. So I still am like feeling very fresh, like out in the world. And I feel like, again, just like knowing the people that I like grew up with here and went to school with, and like, I honestly think that like 80% of them are like doing some work in the arts. And like, I don't know, like sometimes I want to like have like an announcement to this community or to like those like students in particular that like, I don't know, like how do we because I think there's also so much wealth here, and there's so much wealth centered around the arts, which means often whiteness, like it's equating in that area. But like, what is it that like we have to do to kind of like disrupt that? Because I feel like most Black people that I know, and especially like most young Black people I know, are having this exact conversation, but are like feeling like, okay, but how do we like get in there? And I don't know. Like, I don't have an answer, but I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are on that. Like, can we do that? Like, can we, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely have no idea as well.
Yeah.
When I think about it, I always think about just, I don't know, just like, I feel like it needs to be a conscious effort on the part of everyone to just be more diverse, and just making Black people feel welcome is so important. And I don't know how that can be done, but
right.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah, it's a great question. Like, and I feel like I love what you said too. I mean, it feels as simple as like, okay, like love that diversity, and like what does that mean in a real way?
Exactly.
Like, what does it mean in a like non-topical way? Like, what does it mean in a like, you know, beyond like superficial, like appreciating you and your diversity, like but I feel like this, like, honestly, like, I feel like this is where it happens, is like in these intimate spaces and conversations. And I know we just met, but I'm already like just feeling way more like, okay, this can, you know, like,
absolutely.
But I really appreciate you. Like, I'm so glad we got to meet, and like,
I so appreciate
even though it's
the conversation
behind cameras, like, let's continue being in connection. I would really like that. Favorite book?
I would say my favorite book right now it's called Pachinko.
Okay.
It's by this Korean American author. It was pretty big, I think, last year or whatever. And it's this really cool like story about this Korean family, and like
it is like, okay, like there has to be that also like commitment from the city itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a real way.
I like kind of had no idea what this was going to be, but it was really great. So thank you all of you guys.
Yeah, we'll have to do it definitely like round 2.
Oh yeah.